It was great to see so many of you last week on our Zoom call. I hope we can do that again sometime soon. I wish we could be together, but we won't be able to do that for a while, I think. And so I've prepared another short stick figure lesson for you, and I hope you enjoy it. In today's lesson, we meet once again with our old friends, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. And Ahab, as you remember, was actually the most evil king Israel had ever had up to this point. And as we discussed before, one of the main reasons he was so evil was because he was married to Jezebel. Jezebel, when she married Ahab, had brought the worship of Baal into Israel and encouraged it and tried to get people to turn to Baal. God was very unhappy with this. He was so unhappy with this that he sent Elijah to talk to Ahab. And remember from last week's lesson, God had told Elijah to tell Ahab that he was going to stop it from raining as punishment for what they had done. Well, interestingly enough, Baal was the god of fertility, and supposedly Baal was in charge of things like rain. And so basically God was saying, I'm going to stop it from raining. Let's see if your god Baal can do anything about it. Well, obviously Baal was powerless to do anything about this. And so it didn't rain for 3 years, and that caused a great famine in the land. No one could get things to eat very easily, and so it was made very difficult. And Jezebel got so furious at Elijah and at God for what they had done that she sought out all the prophets of God she could find, and she wanted to kill every last one of them. Well, she killed a bunch of them, but she wasn't able to kill every single one of them. One of the reasons was that Ahab had a very trusted advisor in those days, and his name was Obadiah. Obadiah was a devoted follower of God, which is something that Ahab was not aware of. And during the time of the famine, Obadiah had hid 100 of God's prophets in 2 different caves, 50 in each cave, and he had provided food and water for them the whole time. And so he had protected them from Jezebel and her killing ways. Towards the end of the 3 years without rain, Obadiah was out trying to find food for some of the royal mules and donkeys because food was so hard to find. And while he was out doing that, Elijah appeared to him. And Elijah said, Obadiah, I want you to go find King Ahab and bring him to me so I can talk to him personally. Well, Obadiah went into panic mode. He said, what? Are you kidding me? Are you crazy? Why, Ahab will try to kill me. He said, you know, Ahab's been searching for you all these years. He hasn't been able to find you. They've been wanting to kill you. And now you tell me to go find him and bring him to you? Well, you know what's going to happen. By the time I go get Ahab and bring him back, God will have whisked you away to who knows where, and Ahab will be angry with me, and he'll kill me for this. Why are you doing this to me? I've served God ever since my childhood. Didn't you know that I've been hiding 100 prophets of Baal all this time so they couldn't be killed by Jezebel? This is going to kill me. Why me? Well, Elijah reassured Obadiah. He said, as surely as our God lives, when Ahab comes back, I will be here, and I'm going to talk to him face to face today. So when Obadiah returned with King Ahab, Ahab recognized Elijah and immediately says, whoa, there you are, you old troublemaker of Israel. And Elijah says, it's not me that's the troublemaker of Israel, it's you. You're the one that's brought this famine on the land because of all the things that you and your wife have done and how you've encouraged the worship of Baal in our land. And so Elijah told Ahab, he says, call all the people of Israel together and bring them to the Mount Carmel and bring with them all 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah that eat at Jezebel's table. And basically what Elijah is saying, we're going to have a sacrifice showdown. And so that's what they did. When everyone was gathered together at Mount Carmel, Elijah said this to the people, how long will you sit on the fence? Either you serve God or you serve Baal. You can't have it both ways. Make up your mind. And so then he challenged the prophets of Baal right there on the spot to basically a sacrifice showdown. He says, you get us a bull, you get a bull, I'll get a bull. We'll both make altars. We'll both call on our gods to send fire down from heaven to consume our sacrifice. And we'll see today who the real God is. And so Elijah says, well, there's more of you than only one of me. There's a bunch of you, so I'll let you go first. And so the prophets of Baal began to dance around and to scream and try to call on Baal and get his attention to bring fire down from heaven and consume their sacrifice. And this went on all morning long. And around noon, Elijah began to mock them. He said, shout louder. Maybe he can't hear you. Are you sure he's a god? And then Elijah begins to talk about Baal as if he was a mere mortal. He begins to say things like, well, maybe he's in deep thought. Or possibly he's busy going to the bathroom. Or maybe he's on vacation, or maybe he's just asleep and he needs to be awakened. And all the things Elijah says to them are all designed to make them and their God look foolish. Well, this sends the prophets of Baal into a real frenzy. And they start to scream and they start to dance around. They start to slash themselves with swords and spears, and blood is drawn. They're trying to do all they can to get Baal's attention, and yet by mid-afternoon, nothing has happened. And finally, it's Elijah's turn. Before Elijah called on God, he had a trench dug all the way around his altar. And then he had water poured all over the altar 3 different times until there was so much water it filled up the trench. Basically, what Elijah was doing was trying to take a job that was going to be very, very hard to do and make it look even more difficult. And then he calls on God to send fire from heaven. But in contrast to the prophets of Baal, instead of dancing around and screaming and making a lot of noise and cutting himself, he just has a simple prayer. He says, "Oh God, let it be known today that you are the one true God, and I am your servant. Answer me, Lord, so that everyone will know that you are turning their hearts back to you." And boom! Immediately the fire fell from heaven and not only consumed the bull, but it consumed the altar, the stones, the sticks, the ground around it, and it vaporized all the water that was in the trench. Immediately the people of Israel fell to their faces and they cried out, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" And when that happened, the prophets of Baal appeared to have tried to run away. And Elijah called out to the people of Israel, "Don't let them get away. Grab them." And they took the prophets of Baal and they put them to death. This is such a dramatic story. And if you're like me, there are times I've wished I could see God show His power in such a clear and dramatic way. There have been times in my life when I felt like my faith would be a little stronger if I could just see one miracle. Well, God speaks to this feeling that we sometimes have in Hebrews chapter 12. Basically, what God says is that even though people in the Bible saw mighty miracles, they all were looking and hoping and yearning to see the coming of Jesus. God says that even though the people in the Bible, even though we haven't seen miracles like the one on Mount Carmel, we have something better. We have what all the people in the Bible wanted. We know the Son of God and the peace and forgiveness that knowing Him brings us. Instead of looking to the past and wishing that we could see the miracles of old, we should look to the present and be thankful for the power of righteousness that Christ brings to our lives every single day. I hope you have a great week. I'll be praying for all of you and I hope we get to see each other soon.